Hello, everyone. I realized that we haven't ever discussed where this melacha of carrying in public domain is mentioned. So the very first time is in chapter 16 of Exodus, and some people read verse 25 um, for their kiddush during the third meal, the Shalosh Sodot, because it has the word Hayom three times in the same verse. So, ויאמר משה, איכלו היום, כי שבת היום לאדוני, היום לא תמצאו בשדה. So, Moshe said, eat it today, meaning the manna, because today is the holy day, the Sabbath day for Hashem, and today you will not find it in the field. Previously, it said that if you keep anything for the next day, it will rot and have worms, and in fact, that's what happened. So the idea was at the time, true faith and trust in Hashem that every single day we will find the manna, and then on Shabbat, of course, not because of this law. And then verse 26, Sheshet yomim tilkatu uvayom hashvi'i Shabbat lo yeh bo. So 6 days you shall gather it, and on the seventh day it should not be. And again, previously it said that you're supposed to take a double portion for Friday and for Shabbat. Vayhi bayom hashvi'i, and it was that on the seventh day, Yatz'u mina'am lilkot v'lo matzau, and it was that on the seventh day people did go out to look for the manna or to collect the manna and did not find, and Hashem got very angry, and that is the source for the Midrash about how if the Jewish people only kept two consecutive Shabbases, the final redemption would happen. It is a midrash. It is maybe a promise that Hashem had, but it's not very clear from the verses that that's the only reason why we don't have the final redemption. There's so many other reasons, especially now we're in 3 weeks. The rabbis tell us in the Talmud and Gittin that the main reason why the Beit HaMikdash is not rebuilt is because of our infighting and sinat chinam, hatred without justification, or mistrust without justification, and that is what happens. And last but not least, because we are talking about Hotza'ah, so Hashem says, Re'u ki Hashem natan lachem ha-Shabbat, al ken noten lachem b'yom ha-shishi lachem yamayim. See or observe that Hashem has given to you the Sabbath, because that's why He gives you on the sixth day a double portion, which we now do lechem mishnah, two loaves of bread on Shabbat. Shvu ish tachtav, let every person remain in their place. Al yetzeh ish mimkomo b'yom shvi'i, that no one shall leave their vicinity on the seventh day. And thank God they did keep that law, but it is famously said, and I'm not sure if it is accurate, that the Karaites, the people who read the Torah literally and not any kind of oral Torah without any kind of interpretation or hermeneutics, stay in their house for the whole Shabbat. There's actually a moshav in Israel called Matzliach, just outside of Ramle, and there is a shul there, so it's not possible that shul is empty on Shabbat. So I guess it means that the vicinity of the people living there and taking this literally is not that they're not allowed to go out of their house on Shabbat, but rather not to leave their camp, city, town, settlement, or anything else related to that. So that's the source for the commandment to not go out on Shabbat, and also to not carry on Shabbat in the private domain, because, like we said previously, the camp of Israel was considered the perfect public domain, and so now we'll try to understand these halachot a little bit better. We're in halacha 4 of chapter 21. As we have seen, one may not transport objects from one domain to another. So taking the manna as an example, you're taking the manna from the public domain into your private domain. Within a private domain, even in a large house with many rooms, one may move objects around freely because the entire Reshut Yachid, the entire private domain, is considered one domain. Moving items within it is not considered transporting them from one domain to another. In contrast, in Reshut Rabim, one may move an object within his 4 amot, the 6 feet approximately. Since a Reshut Rabim is communal, each individual may make use of only the 4 amot they occupy. And by the way, there's a beautiful, beautiful statement in the Gemara that says that every single person in the world has 4 by 4 amot as their inheritance in the land of Israel. Again, this week's Parsha connects to that, and later in the week we'll make it even more clear. But the idea is, according to the Gemara, that you're not allowed to make any kind of transaction if it's not related or subjugated to property of land that is within that, and so there are these 4 amot that we occupy, and maybe a little bit of a more morbid extension of that is that when we pass away, there also is only 6 feet by 6 feet that we occupy, and that is supposed to remind us of the humbleness of how the land truly is God's and not our own. Nobody purchases a land that is that size. It's only after our death that our heirs purchase that kind of space. So 4 amot is enough space for one to lie down with arms and legs outstretched. And I've seen pictures of people who were Baha'i and persecuted in Iran, where that is the absolute amount of space that they have in the jail cells. And actually, those arms and legs are not outstretched like is described here, but rather slightly folded, almost like the fetal position. So if one moves an item outside of his 4 amot, he has moved it from his space to the communal Reshut Rabim. This is prohibited by Torah law. From a spiritual perspective, it should be noted that all the confusion and corruption in the world stems from division and dissension. And maybe I'll add other nations trying to take over our domain, our property, and what belongs to us. Nations fight one another, people compete with one another, and ideological movements struggle with one another. Thus, tremendous amounts of energy are wasted on strife and contention. Even an individual is often torn between his seemingly contradictory desires. The way to rectify these tensions is to reveal the unity underlying all existence. With the belief that one God created the entire world, and therefore all of space, we can understand that all the different desires in the world are directed towards one goal. Only by following the Torah's directions can we harmonize them and thus improve and perfect the world. We again learned this morning from Benedict about Tikkun Olam. That is the true meaning of it. Now we can understand why the commandment to love your neighbor as yourself is considered a major Torah principle. It bridges the world's fissures and helps us reveal its fundamental unity. We are now in a position to understand why objects may be carried in a Reshut Yachid, in my own private domain. In a sense, a Reshut Yachid is a perfected place. The walls that enclose it give it unity of purpose. Thus, all its rooms and areas within it are considered in one place, within which items may be carried. So maybe just a little bit of historical fact, when people had very little and the only other option was to live in tents or caves, when somebody brought in another family into their house and they shared the vicinity, even though it now seems to be like two different rashiyot, two different private domains, it really was one because it was in agreement that this is the best for us and we should invite this family into our midst. It's a little bit hard for us to understand almost 70 years later what it was like to have two or three families living in one apartment, but I think that we have enough reference to explain it. In contrast, a Reshut Rabim has yet to be perfected. It still expresses the different interests of many different people, and the objects found within it are not yet considered in one place. So maybe I'll take the Lafayette park in front of the White House. Technically, it's considered a Reshut Rabim, a public domain, but on the other hand, each tent or each person that settles there has their own Reshut, has their own domain. But on the other hand, they cannot, unless they are actually in the tent when somebody tries to come into it, they cannot really protect their property in that tent, and so that is one of the problems of homelessness, etc. This is why carrying anything more than 4 amot in Reshut Rabim is considered a melacha. And tomorrow we'll learn a little bit more about these boundaries and these explanations, and we'll stop here and open up for questions.